Hello and welcome back to another video. Today we will be looking at this. This was the first CPU and motherboard I had bought with my own money when I was a kid. I believe this was 2018, if I recall correctly. This CPU and motherboard combination got me through a lot. And it held out for as long as it could. I don't think I could have asked for this thing to do anything more than it was able to. Unfortunately, this motherboard does not work anymore, no matter what I have tried. I think all the memory channels have gone bad in one way or another, just from clicking RAM in and out of them for years. And then in here we have the legendary Intel Ivy Bridge 3770K. And I overclocked the snot out of this thing. I don't know what the farthest up I was able to get it to. I truly don't remember, but it got up there. Yeah. After a couple of years of use, it started to get a little unstable. I think some of the memory channels on the CPU itself started to go as well. But yeah, the CPU is now just wildly unstable, and the motherboard does not function anymore. So, as unfortunate as that is, this now lives on a shelf as display. I don't see myself ever getting rid of this combination just as a shelf display or anything, because again, this combination got me through a lot and lasted me for as long as it possibly could. I was milking performance out of this thing for 3 or 4 months before this got pulled out, because I was trying to save up money for a base platform upgrade, which is that red X99 motherboard that you may or may not have seen before. Can't quite remember. I'm sure I showed it off in some sort of video. But that system was the platform upgrade that I went with. Let's just go over this board. When I was looking for a used board, when I, in 2018, when I had some Christmas money coming around, I wanted something that had a lot of slots, that also wasn't super expensive. And this motherboard, I believe, was around $100. I got it used. It worked. I think the CPU was... I forget how much the CPU was, to be honest. I can't quite remember. I just knew I wanted an unlocked i7, which is what I got, and then I wanted something with a bunch of slots. I wanted something with a bunch of slots and 4 DIMMs. That's exactly what I got here. 8-pin CPU power connector, which at the time was a somewhat new thing. It wasn't new, but it was a somewhat new thing. You knew you would be able to do a lot with a motherboard and CPU, unlocked CPU, provided you had that connector there. 24-pin power supply, obviously. USB 3. You had more USB 3 ports on the back of this motherboard than USB 2. You can see one of the problems here where it's kind of bowing here a little bit. It's probably one of the issues. But yeah, you had more USB 3 ports than you did USB 2 ports, which was just insane at the time that this was new. Oh, goodness. Had, heatsink here, heatsink there, all blue anodized metal. It was also ASUS. I liked ASUS at the time. I still like ASUS currently, but nothing ASUS has really been able to fit any of my builds. So, just kind of is how it is. RAM slots here. I believe the RAM that I had put in here was the 8 gigabytes from my original rig, which, if I remember the specs of that rig correctly, it was a Core i7-2600S that I was upgrading from. 2 4 gigabyte sticks of DDR3 1400 or was it 1333? I think both. I think it was 1333. Don't quite remember though. And then a GT610 graphics card is what was in my original rig. Later on, I had upgraded that to my GTX 1050 Ti, which I know you have seen in other videos. Still going strong. Love that graphics card. And now we have here this board and CPU combination that I upgraded to, carried over that 1050 Ti, carried over the RAM, so I'm still only running 8 gigs. And then I also went ahead and took my GT610 and popped it into this second slot here just to see what would happen. Speaking of slots, let's go over them. PCIe 1X, PCIe 16X, PCIe 1X, SLI. This was that interesting time period where they were doing both PCIe and PCI. PCIe 8X for you to insert two of the same cards and enter your SLI bridge. Does anyone remember that? And then another 8X slot here. If I remember correctly, not entirely sure, but if I remember correctly, you could run 3-card SLI on this board, which I believe is why all these are here. I think. Could be wrong about that. But what I did was I had, as I had said, 1050 here, or 1050 Ti here. I had a Wi-Fi card that I plugged in up here, I think. If I remember correctly, it was my original Wi-Fi card. PCIe Wi-Fi card that I had plugged in up here. PCI, I had an Audigy 2 that I had gotten from some old computer that someone was throwing away. And so I put that in here. So I ran this on the Audigy 2 sound card on Windows 10. I believe I was running it off of like a Windows XP driver or something like that. Can't quite remember, but I did have an Audigy 2 working in this thing. Then we had the GT610, and then on this bottom slot, I want to say I had a USB 3 card, just to have more USB 3 ports. I believe that's what happened. The next thing I did to upgrade this thing was I got a, there was another computer that I was given because it was, trash. The motherboard was busted. Motherboard was gone. So I was given the computer. From there, I was able to get two 2GB RAM sticks. So I threw them into the other channels. So I was running 2 4 gigs and 2 gigs, which if I remember correctly, gave me 12 gigs of RAM. I think. At some other point, I had gotten an 8 gig stick of DDR3 1600, and so I popped one of the 2 gig sticks out and threw in the 8 gig stick, which gave me 18 gigabytes of RAM. And it ran. And it was stable. It was wild. It was crazy. People's reactions to that were hilarious. Eventually, it all got swapped out for 8 gigabyte sticks. So I was running 32 gigs of RAM. Then I had also swapped out the GTX 1080 Ti for an RX 580 8 gigabyte. And then things started going wrong shortly after that. I had also swapped out the GT610 for a Quadro K600, because I had found it for $20 and I knew that had video encoding on it. And yeah, once I had all that filled out, I had also upgraded this thing to NVMe SSDs. One NVMe SSD. Because I got a carrier card that used 4 lanes off of this slot to run an NVMe SSD. So I had an NVMe SSD for games and such, and that was crazy fast at the time. It was nuts. So final config before it started going down the toilet. 32 gigabytes of DDR3 running at, I think it was 1600? I believe so. I had upgraded this I had originally gotten a Deepcool Hyper 212 knockoff to go on here. I eventually upgraded that to a much beefier heatsink with two Noctua Redux fans on it. And then we had an upgraded Wi-Fi card. We had the RX 580 8GB, which covered these two slots. Had the Quadro K6000 here, had the Audigy 2 here, and then we had that PCIe NVMe expansion card there. And then, like I said, everything started going downhill. One day it just would not post, and so I started messing around with the RAM sticks. And apparently, if I remember correctly, these channels were dead for some reason. So I had downgraded to 16 gigabytes. And then that's when I started saving up. And then it once again gave me, I think, 2 more times. It just suddenly decided it did not like the RAM configuration. And so I spent so much time with my 8GB sticks just trying to find 2 sticks and 2 slots in any configuration that would just give me 16 gigabytes of RAM. I didn't care if it was in dual channel or whatever. I just needed it to get me through. And it did. And then once it got me through and I upgraded the system, it hasn't been in the computer since, because it has just simply given up. And I can't even blame it. I put this thing through a lot, be it overclocking or filling up all the slots or having all the SATAs filled up. I cannot blame this thing for giving up the ghost like it did. And it did its best to get me through until I could get that system upgrade. And so yeah, that's it for this video. This was just me talking about my history with the first motherboard that I had bought and the first CPU that I had bought. And yeah, it's just a sentimental piece of e-waste now, but at the time, it was my favorite thing ever. That's going to be it for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed, and we will see you in the next one. There's more PC stuff coming up. Got a couple of different plans for some of the computers. A new NAS is in the works. We'll see how long that takes. And then start of November or so, I am going to start rolling out stuff from a trip that I will be going on in October. So we'll see. We will also be doing the 25 videos of Christmas again, Vidmas, whatever you want to call it. We will be doing that again, one video every day, counting down the 25 days of Christmas. And then New Year's, I guess New Year's Day rather. No, New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve, there should be a video with a compilation of all the neat stuff that I got while out rail fanning this year. Hoping that works out. So yeah, that's gonna be it. We will see you in the next one. Have a good one, guys.